Welcome to this week's episode of The Happy Psychic, and this week I am joined by Dr. Marni Hill Foderaro. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Gemma. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
It's absolutely great to have you here. It's fantastic actually to have you here, and I am very excited to hear about your story. So I know that from whenever we first started speaking, you had talked about the experience that you had. You call it a spiritual transformative encounter that you actually had at a garage sale. So I am very keen to hear all about that.
Well, sure. I was kind of leaving my American dream, making a big life change, and had to have a garage sale. But instead of having feelings that were negative or sad, which would have been very justified, I was just filled with love and light and happiness, which is how I have always been anyway. And so when I was counting my blessings and being grateful, some spiritual miracles happened that really kind of opened my eyes that there was more going on here in the world. And there were a number of different experiences, which, I detail. They inspired my award-winning spiritual fiction, God Came to My Garage Sale. But for example, at one point, I was looking back at my home in gratitude, and a dragonfly circled me. And I thought, that's pretty cool, but I didn't think too much of it, even when there were like 5 dragonflies. But when there were 50 to 100 dragonflies circling me and everything was in slow motion, where I could see the veins of the wings and I could see the iridescent colors, and I saw different sizes, like babies and teenagers and, grandparents. That's how I equated it to, just ancestors that were supporting me during this transition time. That really was very, very unusual and caught my attention. In fact, so much so that about 3/4 of the way through, I started to come out of this kind of trance in a way, the slow motion experience. And I pulled out my cell phone and I videotaped it to actually prove to myself, like, oh my gosh, I really did experience this. So that was one of just many experiences at the garage sale. Some also included people that would come to the garage sale, and I don't remember them even driving up or even leaving, but they made a profound effect and with what they said and how they conducted themselves, and it just seemed like, oh my gosh, was this a coincidence? But really, it was more synchronistic. And at some point, there were even things that really made me question reality, where even one person was at my post office, box, or my postal, mailbox at the end of the driveway. And she was almost levitated. And all of a sudden there were people around her, just kind of as if it was, they were disciples in a way, just looking at her intently to whatever she had to say. And this person, I don't even remember these people being there at that time, and they were there and then they left just as fast as they came. And, I looked, is there a box she's standing on? Is there a boulder or something? No, there wasn't. And, all this and many other experiences with feathers and pennies and songs and smells, very multisensory. That prompted me on a journey to really learn about spiritual experiences and near-death experiences and STEs, which are spiritually transformative encounters. This was a term that was coined by Dr. Yvonne Kaysen, who has had many near-death experiences, but also STEs, and wanted to have a platform for people to share those experiences as well, because not everyone needs to flatline in order to experience these miracles. So that was life-changing for me.
Yeah. What was it that actually drew you to the near-death experiences specifically?
Well, my life partner and I, he is very spiritual himself. So we were attending the IONS conferences. I was living in the Chicago, Illinois, USA suburbs at the time. And in Evanston, once a month, he would go to these to the IONS meetings. IONS stands for International Association for Near-Death Studies. And so it was just fascinating to hear these accounts of people that, died, but, experienced very much some of the things that I experienced. But then they were revived, and actually there are thousands of accounts that even scientists are now validating that this kind of phenomenon, this situation really does happen, that there are people with gifts. And so many of them after these experiences come back with psychic medium gifts or just, more sensitivity to that kind of thing. So I was already kind of looking into that, but not at the garage sale time. It was I was looking into that afterwards, but then it sort of made sense and made me go back to what I experienced, because there were so many similarities between NDEs and STEs.
Mm-hmm. I find it really hard actually to describe to people what propelled my spiritual awakening, what triggered it, because at the start it was very much like just all of these like coincidences or synchronicities that maybe on an individual basis don't have that much meaning, but it was the fact that they were pushed together in such a compact period of time, and there was so many different things that were happening, and I was just like I really felt like the universe was really talking to me. And it is very, very hard to articulate that to people who haven't experienced it without them thinking that you have lost your marbles.
Right. And I am someone that needs proof and evidence. I don't have a foundation in religion or spirituality at all. And so I needed some real proof, and I feel I got it. And I agree with you. These things did come in a clump, came in within a time frame that was just one after another after another. But it's almost like I believe in a way, and I've heard other people say this, that once you experience something and you kind of validate it, you're more open to being aware of other situations that you might have previously just ignored. So yeah, I feel like I was given the proof, but I was given an awakening. I think also in times of transition, or in trauma, that is when you start to question, why do bad things happen to good people? Or you try to question the reality of the universe, and you start thinking about that more. And I believe that from some divine source that you are given answers to that. And actually, part of my quest with this was seeking out psychic mediums to see, almost as a test, hey, can you really tell me something about a deceased family member that no one would know? And or can you provide me validation in that way? And there were some that really didn't seem to have that gift, but kind of acted as if they did. But there were others that really seemed to have knowledge that there's no way anyone would know, and that was very validating in itself. So it kind of opened up my mind to that whole side of things.
Had you ever been interested in psychic mediums before that, or was this just part of your spiritual experiences?
Nope, absolutely not. I just felt that we as humans just created our own reality. I always was someone who believed in goodness and love and humanity and the beauty of nature, even though I didn't have a religious background or a spiritual background. So I feel like I had the foundations that were extremely positive, even with extreme negative situations in my life, and all of us go through challenges in our lives with relationships or work or our health, whatever it is. In my case, I chose to leave a very unhealthy 27-year marriage, and in doing so, the threats I was given were fulfilled. I'm going to take your home, your money, your children. I mean, I even lost my adult children to parental alienation, which is just mind-boggling when you have raised your children into their 20s, not to have them in your life for a week, a month, and in my case, 8 years. And so it's just shocking to put your head around that. But I have gotten so much peace and acceptance about it, because not only have I done my research to understand personality dynamics, people that are abusers, that after they've taken everything, they try to take what is, they try to break you in every single way, when you can't be broken because you're filled with love and happiness. You're able to still put one foot in front of the other and carry on and have a beautiful life, knowing that there's a bigger picture here. There's probably some past life work going on here. There's probably some intergenerational traumas that need to be ironed out. And it's allowed me to, live a happy life, and but still understand that I've suffered a lot of losses, but also knowing that it could have been worse. And there are other people that do suffer a lot of losses, and somehow they're able to go on. Not everyone can, but, I feel like I've had that framework to be able to do that. So, I'm a happy person,
Yeah. And that is so good to hear you say that, because I think that can be one of the hardest things sometimes when it comes to overcoming adversity, is just knowing inherently that actually everything serves a purpose and I will be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel that some of those,
regardless.
right, and those experiences at the garage sale, and then many afterwards, and then looking back some things before, that provided me the validation as well, that you will be okay. It was like a knowing that I had. And my life is beyond okay. I moved from a lifetime in the Chicago suburbs. This whole experience kind of coincided with me retiring. I was a high school special education teacher for 35 years and a college professor as well during that time. And I moved from the Chicago suburbs to the Caribbean, where I am living just a beautiful life, immersed in nature, filled with gratitude, just enjoying, the wonder of this world. And so my life has improved more than I could have ever even imagined.
That's amazing.
I acknowledge the losses. And I pray. I even pray for the abusers in my life. And I certainly pray for my adult children that, I believe in their heart of hearts, they know the truth, but at some point their light bulb will go on and they can overcome their fear, and reconnect with me and with themselves. I hope it's in this lifetime, but you know what? It may not be. And, whatever it will be, it will be.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer, and like my work as a psychic medium and the spiritual coaching that I do has really taught me that there's so much of our lives that we actually choose, and we choose almost the personalities, we choose some of the life lessons. And I do wonder whether you come in on this path in life knowing who you would end up married to, and that you would endure what you endured in order for it to propel you forward. And the same even with your children as well. It's just, I find it all fascinating. There's so much about the bigger picture that we don't see. And I think whenever we get stuck in a situation in our lives, it can be so easy to just be like, oh, it's so hard, nobody loves me, the universe is against me. But actually being able to see that bigger picture, that there is a purpose to everything, that serves a purpose, and even the turbulence will show you to come out the other end as a better person. and a more improved
Yeah,
version.
I agree. I agree, because really I had so many other opportunities to marry someone much more intelligent, much more honest, someone that would have integrity. I mean, but I didn't choose that. I chose who I chose. And then also it prompted me afterwards, realizing who I was dealing with, to do a deep dive into my own intergenerational family trauma and my own family of origin, and look at those relationship dynamics and realize there's a lot of, generational stuff that has to be worked out here. And I do feel that there is a bigger picture to it all. And that provides a lot of peace for me. So, I've heard many people say that we come into this earth deciding, who we will, we might have even made a pact with our abusers or with negative people in our lives to just play out some of these experiences so we can feel these emotions deeply and evolve.
And I actually have witnessed that. Whenever my guides start, because I have a couple of spirit guides that I work with predominantly, and then I can connect into anybody else that comes through from the spirit world. And one of the things that they often talk about and show me is the different pacts, you call them, that we make before we actually enter this incarnation. So for the most part, they can be very nice ones that you agreed to connect with, a soulmate, and you're going to connect up at a certain part on your path. You're destined to have 2 children together. You're going to live in Germany, whatever it might be. But also the other side of that is that, yes, you created the pact to meet with that person on the earth plane, but it doesn't tell you what sort of connection you were going to have with them always.
Right.
And sometimes it's not a positive connection. Sometimes it is something where somebody of a darker energy has agreed to come into that darker energy because they want to teach others around them and they want to experience what life is like as the abuser. And I think, for me anyway, learning that actually sometimes bad things happen because they have been sent to teach us stuff. And it's so hard whenever it comes to like children with cancer and things like that. It is very, very hard to swallow that one. But at the same time, although that is a child, that soul, on a soul level, they're likely very, very evolved and knew exactly what they were coming in for. So even though that we don't have all this information on a conscious level, it is very much there. And there's so much of our life path that, that is carved out. I find it all fascinating, but definitely helps me, swallow it a little bit more whenever there are turbulent times or anything like that I encounter.
Oh, you said that so beautifully, and it does put it in perspective.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And I think as well, we're all at different sort of levels of awareness spiritually. I was a bit like you, where I was an atheist. I didn't believe in God. I think I liked the idea of there being a higher power in the universe working for you, but I didn't necessarily believe in the God that's in the Bible. And so to have the spiritual experiences that I had that led on to me becoming aware of my, gifts as a psychic medium, it was just mind blowing. It completely changed my life. And I know that yours has taken you to, the Caribbean, but has your life changed? Has your life completely changed direction, would you say, from you had these experiences?
Yes and no. I mean, it's given me more peace and understanding, but I also feel that I've always been, like I said, a person of integrity with positive values, looking at challenges as life lessons. So I feel that has remained constant. And it's almost like I had that kind of knowing even as a child, when I was faced with adversity, as all people are. I still looked at the glass half full and realized there was a bigger thing going on here. So some things definitely have changed, but other things have remained the same.
Yeah, I always well, I found it like I had this transition period almost whenever I first became aware that there was something else other than what we experience on this earth. And I feel like I lost myself a little bit. I just didn't know who I was, and I had to almost try and find myself again. So inherently I haven't changed, but I did have a period where I think I was a little bit lost for sure, and I didn't really know fully who I was. And I think that I was expecting my life to completely overhaul, but in
Mhm.
fact, it hasn't. My personality is still my personality. You know, I'm
Yeah.
still the driven person that I was. And I think that, you know, as you say, spirituality can really help us open up more so to those positive parts of us, but it doesn't mean that we have to completely throw our life out the window and start from scratch. You know, we can still
Right.
continue on the path that we're, you know, that we're going.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I agree with that totally. I did kind of have to start from scratch in so many ways. When you deal with an abuser and you escape that situation, you lose your support system as well as your material, tangible possessions and that type of thing. So really, in so many ways, you do have to start from scratch on some levels. But luckily I had some foundation that, just and the knowing that I was given that I would be okay and supported. I had no idea that how happy my life could actually be. I was happy before, though, don't get me wrong, but even more so now, just because I spend my days with a loving, honest person. I'm immersed in nature. I have time to meditate and reflect and to just live in gratitude on a more conscious level.
Yeah, and I can't even begin to imagine how difficult it must have been as well to have lost touch with your children and to have experienced, you know, the level of abuse that you know, that you must have experienced with your ex. So I think that it's always so admirable whenever somebody can come out the other end with a smile on their
Mhm.
face and
Yeah.
able to give hope to others, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, part of the what has been a driving force, and maybe this was all orchestrated by divine as well, but because of my experiences at the garage sale, I ended up having so many that it inspired me to write my first book, God Came to My Garage Sale, which is also the title of my website if anyone wants to check out, my other books or me or that type of thing. But that even though I was someone who always loved to read and write, as an educator, I never thought about being an author. But when you have something, a compelling story to tell, you're just, you know, moved into that path. And so, even though it's a spiritual fiction, and so honored, actually, it just won yet another award. So it's winning a lot of awards. It's part of a book club, many book clubs, actually, possibly a big national book club on the horizon. And it was endorsed by James Redfield, who wrote the Celestine Prophecy. So our writings are really grounded in reality, in true events. Yet it's a spiritual fiction. But that writing, when I eventually got to the Caribbean, led me to write my 5-book series called True Deceit False Love. And like you had mentioned, for me to come out the other end positive, but also inspiring other people, I have been told by so many people, and of course, the people who have endorsed my book, that are very supportive and very well known in this, abuse recovery community. They're giving me validation that what I'm doing with my books, with that 5-book series, True Deceit False Love, is providing hope and inspiration to others that are going through challenging times. And actually, my writings, in some ways, are a very creative, very alternate approach to dealing with trauma and family issues.
Okay, I was actually just going to suggest there as well that was there a therapeutic element to it that you experienced actually writing?
Oh my gosh, yes. In fact, even now, like I'm writing my 6th book in that True Deceit False Love series. It's extremely therapeutic because, you can almost get the trauma and situations out of your physical body and onto a page. And something transformative happens with that. It's like you're releasing the toxicity and still living in light and love. So it's very, very transformative. And it's a safe way to deal with whatever you're dealing with. In fact, the one of the books in the series is a survivor's workbook that encourages other people to write, and in a real kind of structured way, but very easy, very, very easy for anyone who feels that they might benefit from working out their situations in writing. But oh my gosh, yes, it's extremely therapeutic.
Yeah, and I imagine that you have a very, very large number of readers, but I guess it only really takes you to help one person
Yeah.
through your writing for to make that worthwhile, to make like that positive imprint just with one person.
Right. It's not about, I mean, really, you don't for people in my situation, you don't really set out with a goal of, oh, I'm going to sell this many books or do this, affect a wide range of people. You really in some ways are writing for yourself. And I'm of course writing for my children so that they know the truth and that they can see that their mom that they loved until their 20s and had a positive relationship with is really the same person. I'm just, unfortunately for the abuser, probably striking down his false narrative that's out there, because I'm speaking the truth and I'm speaking it with love and
Yeah.
goodness and honesty. But yeah, really, if you just our conversation, if we can reach even just one person to start thinking, wow, there might be more to this earth, that what I thought was a coincidence might really be something orchestrated by divine. It might be a synchronicity. Even that can be life changing. And I think that both you and I probably will never know the ripple effect we have on the world.
Yeah, that is very, very true. And I think it's one of those things as well that we can't force people to absorb the information, but actually it might just plant the seed that
Mhm.
eventually, maybe in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, that seed will sprout and grow and flourish.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So you mentioned obviously about the writings that you were doing and how you were talking and coming from a place of love when it came to your abuser.
Mhm.
But how do you feel towards him? And the reason that I'm asking that, I don't want to obviously pry too much personally, but one of the things I think that we can really benefit from is, forgiveness and
Yeah.
not
Mhm.
looking at somebody with hatred in our
Mhm.
hearts. And so I was wondering how you had dealt with that really when it comes to your abuser and your feelings towards them now.
That's a great question. And yes, I have forgiveness and I don't live in hatred. I have some pity. I feel sorry for a person that spends so much energy trying to harm other people. But with the understanding that I have now, that could be part of their journey, that kind of gives me peace. But no, I don't have any, and I believe me, I have reason, when someone takes everything away from you and continues, I mean, I filed for divorce in 2013. And even after 27 years of marriage, my abuser's still taking me to court. I've been in court for the last year and a half with just trying to defend the truth. And
Mm-hmm.
but they have a need for all that chaos, and they have a need for that control and manipulation. And even though it's inconvenient, at some point you almost have to look at these people as, they really are not as evolved on their journey. They really,
Yeah.
some people say they're very immature, but it could be on a spiritual level. But
Mm-hmm.
whatever, I would never want the life that they have. I'm much happier living in with integrity, with honesty, and that type of thing. So yes, forgiveness, it was slow in coming, though. I'd like to be honest with you. It was almost like I needed, at first you're in survival mode and you're constantly trying to, survive, whether it's putting out fires or, moving ahead, moving away, that type of thing. But I think the forgiveness first came to myself, to forgive myself and not be upset with myself that I chose the person that I did, or that I stayed as long as I did, or I ignored the red flags that I did, or his behavior, led to so many negative consequences that I had to deal with. So the forgiveness was more first for myself, but definitely there's forgiveness and understanding for people that, just have such evil intentions. You don't even really want to give them credit. But yeah. I think understanding that there's a bigger picture is very, very helpful, and realizing also that you can't control what other people do. You can only control yourself and how you respond. That's provided a lot of peace for me personally.
Yeah, that's lovely. I think that it's amazing that you've been able to get to that stage with that person and able to forgive them and recognize that, you said yourself that it might be part of their journey, their reactions. And I often think that as well. And I try to almost try and see it really from their point of view, that they're doing the best that they possibly know how to at that particular time. And I do believe that inherently we are good people, and yes, there will be sometimes people really go off the rails and do bad things to hurt people. But I always think that they're from a place where they're wounded themselves, and they're coming from a place of hurt. So although we can't condone behavior like that, there will be a lot of things that have impacted on how they turned out themselves and why they're reacting the way that they are. And it's just that they're not conscious enough about it, or in an evolved enough place that they're able to recognize that or work on improving that behavior.
Right. I agree. And, just like I had to do a deep dive into my core wounds and what are some things that made me who I was, someone who would have very weak boundaries, or someone who's an overgiver or an extreme empath. That actually helped me understand the abuser, that that boy, it must have been just devastating what they went through as a child to make them someone who, would compete with others, even their own children, or would actually harm people, to get ahead, it's, to understand that really helps put it in perspective. Now, it doesn't mean you have to welcome them back in and say, okay, you're forgiven, you can be back in my life or whatever. That's not the case. Really, it helps you validate that you need to have some boundaries, and you need to realize that, you can love or accept from afar, that you don't necessarily have to have people in your day-to-day. If they're causing you harm, discomfort, if there's just constant chaos, that's not how I choose to live. But obviously it was how I chose to live for many, many years. So I wasn't evolved at a certain point where I could say, no, I'm moving past this. So yeah, I think that with the deep understanding and the inherent belief that people are good, that, people are affected by their, external experiences, that, that shapes who we are, and knowing that there's a bigger picture here where all of this is being played out on earth to help us learn and evolve as a soul is just very, very validating.
Yeah. And usually whenever we cross over, like my experience has been that we become enlightened almost to the terrors and the terrible things that we have caused people on the earth plane. And on a soul level, we just, that is just unbearable for us. You know,
Right.
I can't speak for every soul that has crossed over, but it's certainly been my experience. Some of the, I don't know, if like high profile murders, for example, that have crossed over. There was one who I connected to a few months back when I was watching a documentary series, and I was actually very nervous at the start, but he has completely changed. You know, it's almost like he's seen the light, and even has a connection, was welcomed by his victims from whenever he was on the earth plane. So it really started to give me a lot more perspective where we are on our journey in the physical compared to a soul level. There's so much more that we're just unaware of, I think, at this stage. And because we are acting maybe from a conscious level, but from things that are sitting on our subconscious, if you think traumas and things like that from childhood, there's so many of us that aren't even aware of the things that we've experienced, but yet they still impact on us. So although we may not be aware of the root cause of that, we're still acting out. And you know, yeah, as you say, you know, it's no welcome mat or anything like that for to bring that person back into your life, but being able to release that negative emotion, I think, and recognize that, you know, perhaps that person also experienced some things too.
Most definitely. Yeah. I agree 100%.
Yeah. So how can people find you online?
Well, like I had mentioned, I have a website, which is www.godcametomygaragesale.com. And that is where you can find out about me and the different events and book signings and podcast and TV interviews I've done and all of the books I'm involved in. So that is the best place to find me.
Oh, well, honestly, it has been absolutely brilliant having you on the show. I've really enjoyed our chat today.
Thank you so much, Gemma. And it's just an honor to speak with you, and, you know, to even just this conversation continues to validate, you know, what I really believe is that there is a bigger picture going on here. And it enables me to just continue to live in love and light.
Yeah, it definitely does. There's a bigger picture. There is a bigger picture. Yeah. That is so brilliant. Well, thank you so much for having for coming on to the show and sharing like so much about your life and your book and everything with us, or your books. And I know that you've got another one that you're working on. When is it due?
Right. Well, this is in the True Deceit False Love series. This is the 6th and most likely final book, and it'll be very different than the other books. But yes, I'm working on that, but, you know, at a much more relaxed pace. It's unbelievable as a writer that, you know, sometimes you're given the task to write, you know, you're almost compelled or motivated to write. And it's amazing how quickly that process can go when the timing is just right. So, but I have so many other things I'm focusing on, you know.
My cat is deciding to somersault down onto my desk. Right, come on, if you're coming, come and say hello. No, he's not going to come. He's going to wait. He's decided he's waiting.
Okay, no problem. No problem.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I will look forward to hopefully speaking with you again in the future and seeing more books. And I know obviously you've said that this is likely to be the last one in this series, but I have a feeling that it's not the last book.
No. In fact, there possibly could be a movie on the horizon. So
wow,
pretty exciting. Yeah.
That would be amazing. That would be very, very exciting.
And actually, then that could bring this whole concept of synchronicity to the masses, because, you know, this is happening to so many different people. And it seems like it's almost like the collective consciousness, the world is almost ready now to know that there's synchronicities and signs that we should be paying attention to.
Yeah. And I think that there are so many people that have experienced it that aren't quite ready to talk about it yet.
Right.
And I think hearing conversations like this one hopefully just gives them a little bit of a push or a little bit of confidence that actually they're not crazy, or, that this is normal, that other people will have experienced it. It was like whenever I first come out of the psychic closet, and there was so many people then came to me and said, oh, I do this as well, but I don't really talk about it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, so many people just don't talk about it.
Right. Well, these candid conversations, whether it's about spirituality or whether it's about family trauma or abuse, they, once other people hear these candid conversations, then they kind of realize they might have experienced some of the similar things. And it just, it's all part of our evolution.
And here we have
there's what is your cat's name?
He's called Albus, after Albus Dumbledore in Harry Potter. So I'm a Harry Potter fan.
What a beautiful cat. I actually am an animal welfare advocate, and I have a soul connection with an amazing cat named Ellie that I am just going to be connected forever with, as well as the other cats that I have had in my life. It all started with my first cat, Martha, that I got when I was 10 years old. And so
would you be a cat person then over a dog person, or cat's your thing?
Yeah, I would be, although I love all animals. I love all animals. And living in the Caribbean, every day I'm amazed by another species that seems to cross our paths here. So I love animals in general. I believe that I'm connected on a soul level with many.
Yeah, and I love animals, and I do love cats. You coming to say hello? You coming?
Hey,
look, everybody can see Albus. He's camera shy today. I would say I'm probably more of a dog person, but I think cats are very easy to look after because they really look after themselves. They come wanting food and cuddles, and he's very much what I would call a lap cat. He likes to just get cuddles all the time. But I do love animals, and I sometimes whenever I see animals not being treated properly or not taken care of, I just, it's so heartbreaking to see. But I bet it's probably completely amazing where you are with all of the different species that you are getting to see.
But I will tell you, on an island, on a Caribbean island, and I'm on St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands, right near the British Virgin Islands, which you probably know more about. There's so many animal welfare agencies and support for, helping animals. But I also, on an international level, support different organizations like Animal Aid India or Taki's Shelter in Greece, and Hope for Paws in Los Angeles, California. So, from afar, I try to support a lot of these organizations as well. But knowing that I have a real connection, not only with some cats, but with some dogs that have transitioned.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. The cat's just sitting looking at me, but he doesn't want to be on the camera, so that's fine. Well, thank you again. Thank you so much for being on today. And it would be great to have you on again in the future.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And, thank you for what you do.
Thank you very much.